Hi, everybody. I'm Tamra's owner.
And I'm John Davis.
Welcome to Spirit Cafe.
Come in, sit down, and
grab a cup of love.
A Spirituality Without the Guilt podcast. Hey, guys, it's me, John, and this is Spirit Cafe. It is so great to see you guys. We're just a few episodes away from 1 year of Spirit Cafe. And on February 13th, which is a Sunday, when I normally do my Live Loving live stream, I'm foregoing it that day because it's important that on that day, we do a Spirit Cafe live show to celebrate our anniversary. But now, before I get any further into that, allow me to introduce my compatriot of compassion, a woman who changes rooms with a single smile. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the lovely and the powerful Tamra Zoner. Wah, wah, wah. Hello, Tamra. How are you?
Wow, that was an amazing introduction.
I've been practicing it for an hour.
Awesome.
I love the compatriot of compassion. How about that?
I like that very much. Did you notice my eyebrows go up when you said that?
Better than the cohort of crime.
Oh, it never sat really well with me.
Right, the compatriot of compassion. So we're almost a year.
I know, that's amazing.
It seems like just yesterday we started this thing.
Yeah, it does. It's been so much fun. It doesn't feel like it's been a year. So.
Does not at all. I mean, we are literally a month away at the time of this recording. And you know, when this episode that we're recording right now is episode 49. Wow. And you're only getting to 52, right?
Right. So, that's a year.
Whoa. And so, yeah, the February 13th, that's pretty exciting.
I know. Super exciting. I think that we should send out an invitation to all of our guests who have been on the show to come, like pop on to the live stream, if not.
Oh, that's a great idea. Well, yeah.
Present, right? Yeah, they can type a hello.
Yeah. If we do it, it depends how we'll have to look at the software and play. I'll have to play with the technical of that.
Or I'm going to give John some work here. You could put together some clips of our best,
Oh, you see, I often thought about putting up some beautiful Tamara Zoner dancing clips.
They don't see when the intro music is reeling. I am dancing. I am bopping along to our.
I'll be honest with you, I don't have any, but I wish I did. God, I wish I did, because I would have totally pulled them out on you.
That would have been very funny. Very funny.
The Tamara Zoner blooper reel.
Oh gosh, I mean, you could do that. We do have some bloopers.
There are some definite bloopers out there somewhere. I don't save the raw footage of these. I just, once they're edited, I get rid of just so I don't store it on my computer. So if I had my raw footage, there'd be a ton of blooper things we could throw in there.
Well, half the time it's before you remember to hit record. So
that's right. That's exactly right. It's exactly right. Or the green screen.
John, when you do forget or you make mistakes, it's important to practice some self-forgiveness.
Yay! And that is a great segue. That's amazing how you did that. I'm like, that's impressive. So forgiveness. So we're talking about forgiveness today. So why don't you start us out on the forgiveness topic?
Okay. Well, when I talk about forgiveness, it is more often regarding self. So related to self, because I think that so many of us go through this life and we're so often beating ourselves up for every little thing, for who we are, for how we show up, for how we don't show up, for what we do, for what we don't do. And we have this constant barrage of criticism going on in our brains toward ourselves. And what I noticed for me personally in my journey of self-growth and toward being one of the happiest people I know is that it required a significant amount of self-forgiveness and self-compassion that I really had to practice. It didn't come easily or naturally necessarily, but I practiced it And that is what the message I wanted to communicate in today's podcast is about. In 2022, why not be kinder to yourself and practice self forgiveness? And I want to get into what forgiveness means to you, John, and maybe to some guy you used to hang out with a really long time ago. But first, I want to say, like, we make these New Year's resolutions. And within a couple of weeks, most of us have ditched them. It's too hard or it's not worth the bother because change is uncomfortable and we don't stick with it without someone holding us accountable usually.
Right.
What I discovered in my journey, especially 2 years ago when I committed to doing yoga on a daily basis, not just sporadically like I have done for a quarter of a century now, was that if I didn't feel like doing it, or the day was really busy and I didn't have as much time, if I forgave myself for that, that miss, then it was easier for me to come back and do it the next day. But if I beat myself up for missing it, then it's like this vicious cycle that weighs us down. And then it was harder to get back up and do it again the next day. So that's really where I have to start from on this subject.
Well, let me say, the one thing you said about the resolutions going away pretty quickly, statistically, 95% of resolutions are lost by January 12th.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like just over a week and they're like, nope, I'm done. I'm out of this crap. I'm out,
for 12 days.
And I did a video recently called Resolving Resolutions. And I said, the main problem with resolutions in general are that they are focused usually on the things you didn't like about last year instead of what it is you're creating this year.
Yeah.
And so you need to change the perspective to something more loving. Forgive last year. Buddha talks about the idea of releasing attachment, right?
Yes.
And forgiveness is, in my mind, is a method by which you release attachment. Because if you're forgiving something, it's in your past already. It's already something that's already happened. It's nothing you're not going to change it. It's something that you have to forgive and you have to release the attachment. Now, I want to say this. There are people in your life who may have treated you harshly. You do not have to forgive what they did.
Right.
But you have to release attachment to the situation. And like, I'll give you an example for me, I often have said that my father was an abuser, an alcoholic and abuser, and I was the one he didn't like. Right. So I had to come to a point in my life where I said, I forgive him because he was doing the best he could with what he knew because of his abusive past. And I can forgive him. I don't have to, at this point, say I like him or I liked him. I don't have to like him. I can forgive him, though. I can go, okay, I can set that down, put it in the past. The idea of releasing attachment is, when you look at wanting to move forward into this next year and do something beautiful and loving in your life, you have to cut the anchors that are holding you to the past. And forgiveness is the is the boarding axe that does it, according to the pirates. Right? You chop that rope, right? So I think forgiveness is a hugely valuable tool for literally getting out of your own way.
Absolutely. And people also resist forgiveness, I think, because they think, like you said, it'll make what they did okay. It's not even about the other person, honestly. Forgiveness really is a gift to yourself so that you can feel peaceful in your heart, mind, and body, right? It is so that you can return to peace. Who cares what's going on with that other person? It's not about them. It's for you.
Right. And the other thing that I find interesting is the concept of how do I say this? When you look at forgiveness in general, you're looking at literally not being present. And we only create our present moment. And in our present moment, the people in our past might have done terrible, horrible things. And yes, we don't have to, like I said, we don't have to like them. And we have to release ourselves from those attachments. But oftentimes we define ourselves by our past experience. And when you define yourself, you also are hindering your momentum forward. So you've got to forgive yourself for latching on to it
Sure.
and carrying it. I got an email just today, and the email was like 3 paragraphs long, and it was all the things this woman was victimized by in her life. And she just thing after thing after thing after thing, starting with the Catholic Church, going to her parents, going to her uncle, going to her, and it was this list of things. And I said, look what you're focused on here and now. That's why you forgive. You forgive so that you can let go of the things that are stopping your motion, stopping you from moving. And forgiveness is for me, forgiveness for not only those people, like I said, it's not even about those people. It's about my own personal experience moving forward. But I often have to say, when I think back on my life, I think of things that I've done, and I'm sure many people have the same experience. Well, they'll suddenly think of something they did that was just not right, and they'll go, "Ooh," and they'll have that full feeling of doing it again, right in the here and now.
Mhm.
That's holding on to in those small little micro moments is when you go, okay, no, I forgive that. I forgive myself for that moment. You know,
Yes.
I, and, and even though you may try, this is going into conscience as opposed to forgiveness, but if you're feeling guilty about something
Mhm.
and you want to forgive yourself for feeling guilty, and you go back to that person and you try to make amends with the person that you feel you've done something wrong to, and they don't accept it, you have to forgive yourself anyway, because that's their choice to hold on to it. You don't have to hold on to it. Once you've made the concerted effort to make it better or
Yeah.
make it right, if they don't accept it, that's now you have to come to that place where you say, okay, I have done all I can and I forgive myself. So forgiveness goes in many directions, I think.
That's a beautiful point because I hadn't even thought of it in that way. When we do make our amends and they don't accept it, it's so vital that we release it anyway. We can't make anybody do anything or feel anything. We can only, have domain or dominion over ourselves. And so as long as we make amends with ourselves for ourselves, we'll be okay. And it's not, I think a lot of people think too that, oh, well, if I forgive myself, well, then I'll just keep doing bad things. It's not like permission to keep getting it wrong. It's
Right.
permission to recognize where you went wrong, forgive yourself for not knowing any better at the time or doing it anyway, and committing to being a better version of yourself today and doing what's right today. So
Right.
forgiving the past so that you can live in the present with love, with, your full power. And I love how you really put attention on what are you thinking of today? What are you doing today? What are you creating today in your experience right now? If I were still beating myself up, but I've talked about this on our podcast before, like when I used to be an angry yeller and I would yell at my kids because I was deeply unhappy in my own life, in my marriage, and I took it out on the smallest, weakest people. If I were still beating myself up for that, I couldn't be the parent that I am today, which is this really calm, patient, loving, present person, because I have released that. I have let that go. I have forgiven myself. My kids don't even remember it. They forgave me then. They forgive me now because now they're like, "What? You used to yell at us?"
Mhm.
And if we're living in the past, you're absolutely right. We cannot forge a beautiful future and we cannot experience joy in this moment if we're living way back then,
Right.
right?
I love that. I love that um, transition of the forgiveness itself allows me to be a better parent now.
Mhm.
And that's the same thing with me. My father, if I continued focusing on what my father did, I might treat my son differently.
Mhm.
You know, Instead, what I did was I said, okay, that's how he treated me, and it was a bad experience. My son will never experience that.
Mhm.
And so I forgave it in regards, but I still learned from it.
Yes,
I
you
still got
hold
the
on to the
information.
lesson, right?
Right. The lessons are okay to keep. It's the attachment to the emotion. It's the emotional attachment that we
Mhm.
have to forgive, because the emotions are what make us hang on to things. That's why psychometry works. People pick up something and they hold it and they go, "Oh, Uncle Joe was a madman," or whatever. They're picking up on an energy that's an emotional imprint on something. That's what psychometry is. And when I look at the idea of releasing attachment from the Buddhist perspective, it's the same thing. It's the same thing as forgiveness, right? Forgive. Forgive. What does that mean? Forgive means ahead of you, right? Foreknowledge, forgiving. So you are giving yourself a new future by forgiving the past.
Yes.
You're
Say that one more
forgiving.
time.
You're giving yourself a better future by forgiving the past because you're forgiving.
Yeah, I love it. I love that.
FORE, giving.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's the correct spelling. So please don't check that. There's a Dan Quayle moment in there somewhere.
Also, I want to remind people too, just like in healing, because forgiveness is part of healing, it sometimes takes time, right?
Mhm.
It sometimes happens in layers. And so, in my experience too, and I've talked about this before with my ex-husband, I have to practice forgiveness toward him sometimes on a daily basis, repeatedly, because he hasn't changed, right? He stayed the same static person that he was all those years ago. And so we're still parenting 3 children, at least adjacently. And so I often have to continue to practice forgiveness. And sometimes when old stuff comes up, that I might not realize was still sticking to me, then it's a practice of forgiveness on sometimes a multi-layered basis. So if we say, oh, that person did a terrible thing to me, or I did a terrible thing to me or someone else, and we forgive ourselves or we forgive them, it's possible a new layer will arise and we'll have to do it again. And that is okay. So I just want everyone out there to be patient with yourself in the process of forgiveness, because like any other tool that we utilize in personal development, it needs to be practiced on a
Right.
regular basis to stay strong, right?
I agree. I agree with you. And I want to go on a quick little
Sure.
relationship tangent here. Because my son's mother was the most hurtful person in my past experience. Of all my 3 wives, she was the one that I was truly madly in love with. And when we split, I had hindsight going, oh, I see why, and I see how she is now,
Mhm.
right? Which was huge, right?
Mhm.
But now she says things like, but I'm not the same person. But I see the exact same patterns with my son and her in their relationship.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, she, there's a difference between forgiveness and denial.
For sure.
And I think that there's a lot of people who say, I'm over that. But then
Oh,
you
yeah.
watch their pattern and they're not over that.
Right.
Right.
I don't think that you can just get over things. What
Right.
that means is that you're bypassing the actual experience of the thing, your feelings of whatever the circumstances, and you're pushing it away or repressing it instead of allowing yourself to feel your way through it so that it, in fact, can be released. We don't
Right.
just get over things. It
Right.
really doesn't happen.
And you have to process it.
You totally do. And you have to
Right.
allow all of those emotions to be felt. They just want their voice, like any of
Right.
us, right?
Right.
They're there for a reason. If we ignore it, we store it, right? If we feel
Right.
it,
I've heard that before. Where'd I hear that?
I don't know. Could have been me.
It could have been the lovely and powerful Tamra's owner.
Powerful. I don't think anyone has ever called me powerful before.
Oh, you're totally
like
powerful. You're totally powerful. It's interesting. Now I'm gonna drop into my Catholic upbringing, right?
Mm.
Confession is forgiveness. But is it really?
Is it really? That was my question.
Yeah, is it really? Because you go to a man, you tell him your sins, he says you're forgiven, but you didn't do the inner work. You didn't actually go through the process, right? So I think you have to go through the process to break free and detach, right? And I think that going to someone, having them say 4 Hail Marys and go hang out in the sunshine for a while, it doesn't necessarily help as much as they think it does.
You're like, oh, some unseen force gets to absolve me, but I don't have to do any work.
Right.
That's kind of
right.
cheating, if you ask me.
Well, and think about that. Okay, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. I have just robbed 6 banks and killed 3 guards on the way out. Okay, son, 5 Hail Marys enough with you, right? Okay, oh great.
Well, on to the
But
next
police
day.
officer, I was forgiven. Right.
If the prison system and church
I like
were
how
the
all Catholic priests are Irish too. All
same.
right, son, 5 Hail Marys enough with you. Did you I got to tell you my Catholic priest joke, my Irish Catholic priest joke. So Sean and Michael, they go to church and they're there for confession because they've been, Irish. And so they get there.
I'm Irish.
I'm Irish too, so shut up.
Everybody's Irish.
My grandfather was James Quinn, red haired, parted down the middle, drank a lot of beer.
Mine was O'Donoghue.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Right. So Sean and Michael are outside the church, and Sean says, I'll go in first, Michael. Don't you worry about it. And he goes inside and he sits down in the confessional and he says, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been 6 months since my last confession. He says, well, all right. What have you done, son? What have you done? He says, well, I treated my parents poorly. I said some dirty words. I had bad thoughts about a girl of ill repute. And in all honesty, I think I took something that I shouldn't have taken. And the father says, oh, that's terrible, son. That's a terrible thing. He says, but let's go back. Was it Mary O'Malley? And he says, no, Father, please, don't ask me. It wouldn't be gentlemanly of me to tell you. He says, all right, son. All right. Was it Elizabeth O'Doul? He goes, no, Father, please. I can't tell you. It wouldn't be the right thing to do. He says, all right, I understand. I understand. He says, was it Moira O'Donoghue? No, Father, please stop. No, please just give me my penance. He says, all right, son, all right. 5 Hail Marys enough with you. And Sean walks out and he walks out. And says, and Michael's sitting there and Michael says, how'd it go? He says, great, I got 3 names.
That is funny.
Great, I got 3 names. It's not often I get to play with my Irish accent. Kind of slipped into Scottish there a little bit, but it's okay.
I find we once camping in California spent a whole entire week speaking in Scottish accents. We had the other campers around us convinced we were visiting from Scotland, and
really,
it was just because we had watched Braveheart a lot.
Oh, great movie! Great movie! Great movie! Love that movie.
Anyway, we did.
So forgiveness. I forgive you. Can you forgive me for my Irish accent?
I forgive you for your accent, for that tangent, for
yeah. Forgiveness is a great topic. It's one of those topics that I think more people need to look at their life and go, what can I detach from? What can I release? What can I forgive? What transgressions can I forgive? And it's the transgressions that I find is an interesting word, because it means we're transgressing away from something. Now, in my personal belief, it comes down to it's transgressing from love, doing something out of fear or anxiety or to achieve power in some way. So a sin, in my view, is a transgression from love. It's a dalliance into fear. And the idea of looking back and saying, okay, I forgive myself for those things. And I forgive the people who did those things to me, because I'm not allowing that circumstance to hold me back anymore. Right. And I forgive them so they don't have to be held back by because energetically, if you're not forgiving them, you're anchoring them as well.
Yes.
Let them go. Change tomorrow. Was it forgive yourself tomorrow? so by forgiving the past. Give
Yeah.
yourself something in the future.
Absolutely. It's so important. And I think too, people think they might only need to forgive themselves for the big stuff, but there are little things each and every day that we do. We call ourselves names, right? Who in their head is saying, oh, I was such an idiot, right? Forgive yourself for that because it builds this energetic gunk.
Right.
And we have to be like, ah, I'm sorry. This is where I'll say to people who ask me, well, how do I love myself? How do I love myself? You do it through your actions. And one of those actions is compassion and forgiveness. So
Mm.
when you notice yourself beating yourself up, you bring awareness to that and you take a moment with it and say, oh, well, gosh, I just called myself an idiot. That wasn't a very nice thing to do. That wasn't a very loving thing to do. I'm sorry. I'm
Right.
sorry. Let's rephrase, let's reframe. And oh, I made a mistake. Right.
Right.
So we forgive ourselves and then we also take action by making it right and making it better.
Right. And this is, I'm so glad you went there. Um, and forgive the people that made you feel like an idiot early in life.
Yes.
So you started defining yourself that way. I was working with someone the other day, and um, I asked them, "Are you worthy of love?" And they, well, as worthy as anybody else. I said, "Why wasn't the answer yes?" Right? Because she defrayed it. She knocked it off to the side. Right?
Yeah.
Because she wasn't feeling worthy of love. And the more we talked, the more it came out that there was a disconnect because of her parents treated her that way. And in the process of treating her that way, she ended up having an experience where she actually was holding on to junk and then not acknowledging that she was holding on to stuff. And the fact that she was holding on to that trauma from her parents in the past, she didn't even know at this point in her life that she was feeling that way. And then she said, "But I am worthy," and I am worthy. But why aren't people treating me like I'm worthy? And I'm like, so people aren't treating you like you're worthy because that's what you're expecting them to treat you. How you expect them to treat you because you don't feel like you're worthy, right? And
Yeah.
she was like, "Oh,
She's showing them how to treat her. She doesn't
right,
treat herself as worthy, so they don't feel like they have to. And that's not necessarily a conscious thing, right? But it's definitely in the energy. Yeah, if you walk all over yourself and you let people walk all over you, then they're going to walk all over you. They might not even mean it, but
right,
they're like, oh, they don't care, right? They don't
right."
care.
Yeah, it's like my father used to call me the worthless bum.
Oh,
Yeah, and for the longest time, I felt like the worthless bum. And when I went on the road and did Renaissance festivals and started wearing tights for a living, then I was really the worthless bum, right?
right.
But
Yeah.
I became like well known on the Ren Fair circuit and one of the top shows out there and did all the. But he didn't see it, right? The only time that his forgiveness came for me being a worthless bum was a couple of years before he died, because he was suddenly proud that I did USO shows,
Mm,
right? But before that, I was a worthless bum, right? I can't be attached to somebody else's pitfalls and challenges in life. And he was judging me. And I often have asked myself why I was the one that got singled out in the family. And I realized that I was the one who was very different.
okay.
I was the one who was having out of body experiences and seeing imaginary friends and all these things. And I don't think he could jive with it. I don't think he could. I mean, I crucified my GI Joe in the backyard. By the way, I mean, I literally had him on the thing with the Roman letters,
Oh,
King
wow.
of the Jews over his head, as a kid, right? So he could. I just don't think he could possibly um, created. Now, as far as some guy that I knew 2,000 years ago,
Yeah.
um, forgiveness, he was very much about the idea of forgiveness in the regards of if it's not present, it's not creative. right? Because you only have the one moment. So if you're looking at the things in the past and they're holding you, you have to forgive them
Mhm.
and give them the love and the compassion that you want in your present moment, because your present moment is has to be loving. We look at sit in this moment, we look at these giant goals that we've set for ourselves, and we're like, it's not going to magically happen. Like we talked about earlier, this is, it's by living the present moments in loving alignment and making the small, tiny successes and
Yeah.
letting them stack on top of each other. Because when you experience it, it's not going to be in the future. It's going to be in your present moment.
Yeah.
It's coming to you depending on what you do here. And
Right.
what you do here should and could start with forgiving the things in the past that have held you to the past.
Mhm.
Because once you release them, then you can be more present and create more lovingly, more caringly, and more creatively.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
The interesting thing, people ask me all the time about Jeshua's beliefs, and they ask me if he was, old school Jewish, or and they ask me, and the most fascinating thing to me, and it started with my very first regression, um, was the simplicity of it. And I often say it seemed more Buddhist than Christian.
Mm.
It seemed more present moment, very much living the love, and in the regression, I actually say it's more simple than we can grasp. And so
Uh-huh.
we put junk around it to explain it. And
Right.
the junk is where we get muddied, right?
It
But
absolutely is.
yeah. And so forgiveness of the people in the past, just love them no matter how they are.
When you break it down, it really is so simple. It's just be love. That's it.
It literally is. And the interesting thing about that statement to me is fascinating, because people don't understand when I say be loved, they're like, what do you mean be love? I said, love the things that you're doing, love the things that you are. And it's like the story I often tell of the lady who had agoraphobia, and I got her out of her house.
Mhm.
And I used to go over and pick her up and take her to lunch. And one day driving, she says, why do cars merge easily with you? And my response was, because I love driving.
Mm.
By loving driving, driving gives me something loving to experience.
Yeah.
So I love that experience. And when in Swaminarayan, in the Hindu faith, he he's the story I tell about the little boy with the lion.
Yeah.
And he walks into the village, and the next day comes out and the lion's asleep at his feet. And they say, how come he didn't eat you? He says, because I'm without fear, he gave me nothing to be fearful for.
Yeah.
So without fear is love, right? So he's just being love, and he was creating that experience. So, when we say be love, it literally is do loving, caring things
Mhm.
in every aspect of your life. If you want to drive somewhere, love the drive. Don't say, oh crap, I've got to drive somewhere today, right? Oh, I hate driving, right?
Oh my gosh, that is for real. Like I had this experience where I was driving to a gig, one of my happiness circles, and it's a longer drive than I normally do, right? And I was lamenting over how hardly any people show up anyway. Why am I driving all this way? I like caught myself, right? And I said, oh, Tamra, no wonder you have fewer people show up. No wonder, because you're in this awful energy. And so, right, I was like 10 minutes away from the place on a 45-minute drive. And so I totally shifted with the awareness, right? This is what happens, my friends. When we have awareness, we shift in it. And so I thought, I am going to look so forward to the one or two people who show up. I don't even care how many. I'm going to give them my all. I'm look at the sun shining. I'm going to love this. I love it all. I love this place. It's a beautiful building, a beautiful community. And I just allowed myself, I really cultivated this sense of love and excitement toward that. And I had the biggest crowd I'd had at that particular senior community, which was like 6 people, but so what? I had 6
Right.
people and they
People
were,
who wanted to be there.
yes, and they were served with love, right? And it
That's
just
beautiful.
everything. Yeah.
It's so and forgiveness begins with awareness.
Mm-hmm.
being aware of what you're actually thinking and saying and doing. I catch myself probably daily at doing something where I'm like, oh, I don't like that. I got to forgive that, right? So you
Yep.
got to let it go. But we're running along a little bit today.
Well,
This
let's
topic
get
was
out of
was
here.
a good
I
was a
got all
good one.
excited.
So don't forget, everyone, don't forget February 13th at noon on the Spirit Cafe Podcast YouTube channel. We're going live
Yeah.
at noon.
We want
So
to see you there and interact with you and answer your questions and just have some fun. It's going to be a celebration. And
grab your
yeah,
cup of whatever and come and join us.
exactly. It's going to be a blast.
Take
So,
us
what
out of
else
here,
do we have
lady.
coming up, John? Anything
Uh,
else?
um, let's see. Oh, next this. Well, no, I can't say next because it'll be
You're
in the
going to
past by the
go
time I
back in
say it.
time.
It'll go back in time, right? Yeah. We have some stuff coming up.
Well,
Make
we'll
sure,
announce it on the live stream because
yeah,
we'll
and
actually.
make sure you go to Tamra Zoner's YouTube channel, and if you haven't signed up for and subscribed to that yet, make sure you do that because it's important that we push Tamra out into the world. We start smacking her with the cosmic 2x4 that she's been smacking me with it for the past year. So
Yes, come to my channel and let me smack you with a
ow,
by
ow.
four.
All right, take us out of here, lady.
All right, my friends, thank you so much for being here with us, for listening to us talk about forgiveness. And as always, we love to hear your thoughts. So comment on whatever platform you can comment on about your feelings on forgiveness. And I'd ask you, could you commit to yourself to practice some loving compassion and forgiveness toward yourself this year in 2022? We'll forgive you if you don't, but we encourage you to do.
I might not.
All right. All right. Thanks again, everybody. We're so grateful for you, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you for joining us at Spirit Cafe, a place where you can safely explore your spirituality without the guilt or dogma of religion. Leave all comments and suggestions on the Spirit Cafe podcast Facebook page.